We're like waiting for it. Yeah.
And then board. Sorry, whenever you are ready. Call to order of the Federal Government Authority for to take the conference of August at. Yeah.
Katie Souls.
Angela Nichols.
Tiffany Gatesman.
Steve Fitzgerald.
Lori Hannon.
Mark Thompson. Bill Palmer.
Abby Samuelson.
Nick Crab.
All right, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
All right. Can I have a motion to approve the?
We should vote on it.
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right, next, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
No motion. Motion.
I'll second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Before we move into discussion topics, anything for the open forum?
Looks like just Nick is on there.
Yeah, so.
I hope everybody's business
Yeah.
was busy during Mural Festival. We think it was the highest attendance one we've ever had, so
That's
knock on wood, you all saw good outcomes from that.
A lot of people.
Okay, so let's move into the discussion topics. First topic is the signing of the checks and our spending maximums. So Sarah.
Yeah, so we just need to make a motion, our bylaws state that the treasurer, Nick, either signs the checks or it can be the chair, executive director, or a staff member designated to do so. Just determined by a motion or resolution. So I've talked with the staff team here at Town Hall, that easiest thing to do at this point, currently because the account is just within the town budget. And you don't yet have your own bank account, which I don't think is really necessary at this point until we, have a little more money to play with. So they are town checks. The current signatories on the town checks are Michael, Antoinette, and then Brian, the mayor, and Peggy, the pro town. So the easiest thing is just to keep them as the signatories for the DDA checks. As the interim executive director, I would still review them, and Nick is still looking at the finances, but it just keeps things nice and clean. And then if there is a bank account opened in 2025 or the near future, then we can relook at who's authorized on that bank account to sign those checks. So that would be the recommendation from the staff. The other question is just the amount that you want to have as a maximum amount that somebody could put on the town credit card or sign a check for without needing actual authorization from the board. So I think it's finding that balance of you wanting to be able to keep oversight of the finances. It is a relatively small budget for the board of trustees. Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but he can spend up to $10,000 without needing specific board approval. Your budget at 30,000 is obviously much smaller. But you know, it just allows, you know, me to talk to lawyers, go out and buy scones for the plan of development discussion without needing to have a board meeting to approve that. So I think it's just finding a number that you're comfortable with authorizing, and then we can make a motion to authorize that amount as the maximum amount that can be spent without prior board approval. And then just the motion to allow those folks to be the signers for any checks for the DDA expenses.
Yeah, I'd lean towards like 500 to 1,000.
Yeah, I was thinking same exact numbers, 500 to 1,000. We don't want to be approving like little things.
With an annual cap.
Exactly,
Might-
right,
might-
exactly.
might make sense.
Yeah.
I'm in favor.
Alright. All right, so we'll start with that first motion. Motion to cap it at $1,000.
Yeah.
With an annual cap of, I don't know, with the $30,000 seat, I mean, I don't know what you think. All the way. Yeah, right, you got me right. What do you guys think? Like with the,
Honestly, if you have to pay lawyers and stuff, that's not anything. So I would say 2,500 if we trust this person to spend money properly. If you don't trust somebody, yeah, throw it at 500 or 1,000. But if they have to pay lawyers, that's serious. That's 500 an hour for Troy.
Right, and just to clarify, those things would be considered authorized, like we've signed the contract with
Which still,
Troy.
yeah.
So if, you know, I tell Troy, yes, please meet with the
Sound
county
enough,
assessor.
yeah, this is for like supplies and, yeah, smaller
Yeah.
things. Yeah. All right, with the, do you want to just cap it at the full 30, or do we need to readjust it at a certain amount, like 15?
About 1,000. Go for
No, no.
it.
For the
Yeah,
1,000, for the
1,000.
cap.
Well, 1,000 for the cap, but then he said like a,
Yeah.
like a annual cap, like, that works for me. Okay, got it.
And-
All right, so, have a motion to approve for $1,000 cap on, non-authorized spending.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And do you need an annual cap?
Do we need an annual cap?
I figure with.
because that would just be miscellaneous spending, right?
Right.
Is-
That's what
we're
I'm
trying
thinking,
to,
not with 30,000 is, that's the cap, basically, right?
Oh,
but I think miscellaneous spending, we
I mean-
should like categorize it.
I mean, that would be, I mean,
Yeah.
most of it's gonna be the authorized.
That's what, that's what I'm thinking. We're not gonna see a lot of this.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I'd suggest like 1K is the expense cap and then 10K as
I
the
was thinking
annual.
10.
And all that means is they've got to come
Go
back and
to us
stay.
and reauthor and do another
we've
review.
got this
Yeah,
amount,
we've done
right,
this amount.
correct.
I was thinking 15, but 10 works too.
Whatever.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we
there-
just had a
there's-
motion that passed,
Yes, I know we've done
and that was for 4,000?
That was for
1,000. That
1,000.
was
Oh,
for 1,000. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So then the
that's right, correct.
second motion will be motion to cap the annual non-authorized spending at
1,000, great.
15,000 and then to come back for another review. The motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 I can need a motion to authorize the check. signing.
Yep, that was the next thing. Yeah, so motion to, it'll be the town clerk's
So it would be Michael Brack.
Michael,
the
yeah.
town Manager. And McVeigh.
Yep.
The
Town
town
clerk.
clerk.
Oh,
Right.
signatories?
Yeah,
Signatories?
The town signatories, yeah.
okay, yeah, town signatories, that's just, yeah. So motion to approve the town signatories as the check signers for the DDA.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Alright. Okay,
Sign some checks.
so there we go. All right, moving on, the next item is the discussion of the DDA logo. So this, we were thinking about obviously doing a logo, if anyone would be interested to provide input or provide drafts or have the specialty to do so.
I mean,
Please
I
let
can
us-
assist with that. I'm always making a logo,
Nick?
sadly.
Yeah,
Feels like.
Nick?
Go
I've
ahead.
already started on two concepts. I can emailed those concepts to you guys. One's pretty new and all that, but one is pretty much just using the town's logo, and then we just add on our like title of our board on it. But I can send those over and we can kind of talk about those. I can do that now, or I can do that for our next meeting. But I do have them kind of ready to go if you guys are interested in seeing them. But I know that Abby wanted to toss her head in there as well. So
I don't need to toss anything in if you're already in queue. There's just a couple like global like logo companies where you could submit certain concepts and then you have like hundreds of logos come back. And so that's,
oh wow,
I don't
Okay.
need to make a logo. I love that if you're making it, let's see it.
Yeah.
If you're open to
Send
showing.
it over. You can.
let me
Share screen?
I'm on my phone. So
Yeah,
no
let
worries,
me
Josh.
email it over. Sorry
Yeah,
guys.
that's a pain.
All of my appointments have been falling on these dates and it stinks. Promise to be at the next meeting for sure though.
No.
Oh,
Thank
he's
you.
pulling those up, Sarah. I was gonna say that it'd be cool to have like a tag for that, that thing in August. Or sorry, that we're in August right now, in a couple weeks.
In September,
Yeah,
to have the logo
Or-
for that.
yeah,
For the,
Plan and
for
stuff.
Eris?
24th,
Oh, for you, for the downtown
Yeah.
Denver? I
right?
think we'll have those in time.
Have like a name tag or
Oh.
something,
Oh,
Yeah, totally.
just,
yeah, we could
Mhm.
look
Raise your
at, we just ordered name tags for the town. I can ask Sarah what those cost and see if that's something you guys wanna do.
okay.
Yeah.
That would be under novice.
Yeah.
Spending rate.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
Are there blanks? Can she just put the names in on them? Are they pre-ordered with the names and all that?
We had them pre-ordered for
Okay.
town staff.
Gotcha.
So I'm not sure how long it takes. I'll talk to Sarah coordinated
Okay.
that. Sarah, okay.
Because those usually have the position underneath, right? Under the name. So
Did you put DDA?
I don't know if
Yeah,
we would want.
Could just
to
do a
be
name.
town
like
Fraser
downtown
DDA.
Fraser Downtown Development Authority or.
Yeah, I just do a sticker. Yeah, like a label.
That'd be too
Permanent marker.
confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
weeks away.
I
that
could
would
rig
be,
it
like,
for
the-
that,
yeah.
the quickest.
Yeah, yeah, the last, downtown card and conference that I went to, typically at conferences, they'll give you name tags if you're registered, so they
Nice.
probably will give you one.
Smart.
This guy, I wasn't thinking about that either, Michael.
I like it.
It's great it just takes, I don't know what it is, but it takes forever to get name tags. But we'll get them
Yeah.
ordered. You just might not have them in time for the conference.
I'll be okay.
Yeah. Thank you, I can employ my 6-year-old.
Yeah, our kids.
I want like a special one.
That would probably get noticed more, right?
Nick, were you gonna email it?
yeah, I just sent those images over to everybody in that same email string from the meeting agenda.
All right.
So it should be coming in pretty soon, but like
To you. Oh,
I
wow.
would just.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
We don't call
let
this
me
meeting.
sign the meeting here.
Yeah.
Oh, you're my grandkids. Yes, yeah, don't call me out then.
And we could
And-
decide on a logo today if Nick has done something you all love, or this was really meant to be, would somebody like to make a logo? Do you want me to ask somebody in-house here to make something so that you guys can have some different options to look at?
I do think that we should maybe ask other people and like have other options as well. I won't be offended if you don't choose these. They took me about an hour, so it's not a big deal.
I do really like these. A couple comments. I feel like the first one, I really, really like the idea of it. Just like super busy. If we can maybe make it just more basic, but I love like the pretty. I mean, it has everything of Fraser, of the downtown, the river, and the mountain. It's just super complex.
Absolutely.
The second one is nice, but it's just the town logo.
Yep.
But yeah, I like the idea of the first one.
I can share my screen so everybody.
It does feel
You're
like
not-
it,
yeah.
stars.
It's like a seal.
Authority.
Mm-hmm.
Could be on a nice coin.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
it does look like it
A
could.
doubloon.
So that was the first one, and
See, don't they have it now?
then that's the second one.
Yeah, the second one, I think it kind of depends on the goal. If the goal is to kind of indicate a close affiliation to the town, then that probably makes tons of sense. If the goal is to sort of separate ourselves from the town, then it probably doesn't.
That's a good point, Steve. I think it should, I do think it should interject a bit more in terms of like a family of brands in a sense. Cause I don't know what the art one looks like for PAC. Do you have your own logo?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, let's go.
Yeah.
Nick, so I feel like that, I feel like there should be a tighter partnership so it would feel like an affiliate. Right?
I do like
Yeah.
that.
Whether it's the
100%
font.
agree.
Yeah, or the color scheme. Or you could take that logo that Fraser already has and make it a circle of where you were going. But yeah, I think we should make it match.
However you guys want to do it, I am pretty well versed in this. I'm not like an expert. This is my job, but definitely know my way around the programs. But you guys just let me know it kind of where you want to kind of go, and I can definitely take it there. So
The fact that you have buildings in the first one is really good.
Yeah, I like that.
I think you need that in the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
logo.
Maybe keep like combine the two together, if you will, like utilize the town logo, but add buildings in somehow to make it our own logo or something, and a little bit more like of a downtown subject.
Yeah, that river that
Yeah.
the town went with was really, I love that.
Oh, maybe replace Fraser, the town, the word Fraser with buildings.
With what?
With
With the
with the
buildings.
building, so we get the logo, the mountain and the sunset logo, and then the Fraser River, and then
yeah.
omit the word Fraser, and then put like a
The
downtown
building.
building.
I don't know if you guys do want us to do that.
And then you can keep the Downtown Development Authority
Yep.
under.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
They probably have to check with the board on that one, if they would be willing to, share their
Oh,
logo.
utilize it, yeah,
you know?
that's a good
Yeah.
point.
We need to check
I
with the
mean,
board
I
on that one.
personally like the way Abby was thinking about it in terms of like what'd you call it, family and brand family.
Yeah, it's
So there's similarities, but it's a separate.
entity.
Yeah, which is what you were
I
suggesting.
like that.
Modifying.
Yeah.
This modification.
Yeah, I'd like a nod towards the current logo, but it's still being distinctive for all the reasons you've well articulated.
Because we want them to, we want everyone to know that the DDA committee is like, you know, community members. Not
So
like
would we want the acronym, or do we want like the overall, like all the words in there? Because I think the words are important, but also it's a lot of letters. So
I think we need to keep the words. Because most people don't know what a downtown development authority is.
I agree.
Makes sense.
Yeah. They're like, DDA, what's a DDA? I had that experience.
Sounds a lot more scarier than the
Yeah.
downtown.
Yeah, and it is. And so far, it's writing's very clear, because with the American with Disabilities Act now, with logos and anything you publish online, it has to be really legible. So I don't know, even with that, if there would be an issue with the colors. And I do love that artwork you got on there. And like you say, it's just probably too busy, but it incorporates everything that we're hoping for.
I think that.
We can show that to our developers and say, okay, this is what we want it to look like.
Similar, yeah, and I think the windows are what it really makes it busy, because there's so many windows on the buildings. If the buildings were a little more simple,
Yeah.
it might.
But it's, I know, I agree, we need to stick with the town of Fraser and tie it in and the family.
What if we,
Yeah.
what if we moved,
But I do
change
love
those,
the artwork.
change the trees into buildings?
Mhm.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. So we keep the logo-esque, but it's a little bit different and it nods to the downtown portion.
Oh, and
Especially the
this-
one
Yeah, and
trees.
Okay, I
this one right
see.
here.
Who did this logo? Yeah.
This was Slate. The way the process worked for this, we did at some point call it the logo bloodbath, but we submitted some logo options, based on working with the committee and going through, having them select colors and typeface and different things like that, talk about different logos they like. And then we had individuals from the community submit logos as well that were considered, and then it went out on Facebook for the start of the bloodbath. And then the board tore it up, and then we eventually came back with a logo that I think everybody's really happy with. So I don't think it's a bad idea to have Nick work with your feedback. If Abby wanted to throw something in, I could ask Sarah, who worked with Slate on the logo, especially if you want to go with that brand family kind of idea. If she would have time to put a couple things together, and then the group could look at them at a future meeting, be at the next meeting or.
Yeah, as a person who participated in the bloodbath, I strongly urge us to avoid that complicated process again. I think we've got 90% of it here. Yeah.
But it
Public,
did
public survey.
end up with a great product. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the time was well put, because it is a
Yeah.
nice logo.
Yeah, and I really like the idea of maybe replacing those white trees in the middle with buildings. And that kind of speaks to the mission and the connection to the town.
Right.
But if Slate was to help, I think it would take some, maybe, I don't know, legwork off the graphic, off the re-engineering.
For sure.
I'll show you, this is the picnic in the park logo.
Oh,
So again, they took the same kind of color scheme.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
love it. That's great.
Yeah, we all like the silhouette.
Yeah.
Looking
Yeah.
at some other options of other cities in Colorado, we're already like, so that's good. Both with the town logo and the DDA.
And
logo,
trust me,
that I
we
found.
looked at all of them.
Yeah, some of them are pretty boring.
And then that also matches the new signage that you have.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
and a lot of the discussion too, and like Slate's kind of expertise was talking about ADA compliance and making sure it's something for somebody that might be visually impaired to easily see and recognize.
Mhm.
And that also, I mean, I don't know exactly how the DDA is going to be using this logo moving forward, but wanting something that was really important for the town is this is getting put on t-shirts, hats, cars, like what's something that can easily be done that versus where if you get a lot of detail, it gets hard to reproduce it and to put it on things where it still looks nice. So there's some different things to consider.
and did he make the same logo for the picnic in the park?
Yeah, Sarah worked with Slate for that. and
Okay.
then they gave her kind of three different verticals.
That would, I mean, that's just another good idea for him to work on it since he's already made, like, started branching off on the brand family, if you will.
Yeah,
So then you can have the same maker
okay.
do another one.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what our arrangement set up is with Slate at this point in terms of that cost wise, but I can talk to Sarah and figure that out. And if it's minimal, you know, it might just be kind of part of our package. Otherwise I can bring that back to the board, but.
And thanks, Nick, for taking the time to do that.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you. Nick.
yeah, we wouldn't have anything to talk about.
Right.
Yeah, no worries at all. It's actually, it's a hobby. It's just kind of fun. So.
Oh, cool.
Maybe that can be.
Nothing like putting your art out there for scrutiny.
Exactly. I'm used to it at this point, though.
Tell me about it.
All right, we don't have any other discussions on the logo for now. We can move on to presentation.
All righty. Let me go up here. Is this microphone on?
Yeah.
And I'll stand up here so Nick can hear.
And just, Steve, I'm sure is gonna say this all much more eloquently than I will, but just to provide some context. A big part of kind of the visioning for downtown and particularly for Clayton Court and developing that as a main street has kind of seen the Fraser Center for the arts as an anchor kind of piece of that development. So we thought it would be helpful to just kind of have that in your minds as we're talking about the vision for downtown Fraser. So what we'd like to see there as part of what kind of development.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. And I want to stress, this is not a sales pitch. This is a history and an information session, a briefing to try and make sure that we're all on the same page. There's many miles to go before we have the Fraser Center for the Creative Arts, but I want you all to appreciate where it came from, how we've been thinking about it, how it ties to this effort, and that way we're all of the same understanding. So where this story starts, probably starts even before this, but in 2016, you have on your agenda and in your files a document about the Fraser Strategic Plan. On that strategic plan, you will see things like Victoria Village. You will see things like the Riverwalk, things that we're still working on today. What you'll also see buried in the back on some of the stuff around the community input, page 43, page 47. What should Fraser look like? First thing on the list is art everywhere. Think the Mural Festival, which has been created after this input. Think murals, also on the list. Think about the economic impact that has had for our town. On page 47, you'll see things like idea of River District mentioned in the meeting sounds worth pursuing. It goes into a variety of things that could be in that river district, including an arts district. And then the under ideas, opportunities, and actions, more mountain biking themed businesses and art. So one of the things you'll see in that strategic plan that started in 2016 is a desire to build a brand for the town that was inclusive of the arts. Okay. In 2017, and I believe early 18, the town convened a working group. And Barry, were you a part of that group?
Yes.
So I'm going to turn to you in a second to give a little bit of history because I was not. That working group was asked to do a vision for the town of Fraser's Creative Arts Center. And what came of that is the first version of this document. You have the new version in front of you, but this older one was a version where the idea was to build an art center right behind Barry's business, the distillery, on the Mural Park. In the time since then, the town has developed the Mural Park a little bit. The vision at the time that this was created included affordable housing. It no longer does. It did not include a performing arts space, which it now does. So I'm going to just pause for a second and ask Barry, as part of the group, to tell us a little bit about your recollection of that process, how it went, without getting too cynical, and where you all came out at the end of it.
I am not cynical at all. I have been in favor of it from day one and was very pleased to participate. The biggest disagreement was the style of the building. There were some that wanted something that was very outside the box and iconic and extraordinarily expensive. And others of us wanted something more rectangular and less expensive. The ones that wanted something iconic and outside the box and very expensive went out. But other than that, there was no real disagreement as to whether or not this was a great idea. Everybody in the group was very much in favor of it.
We were excited when we first saw the plans because we thought, oh, that fabulous glass building, it'll be a showstopper. People will see it driving by on Highway 40 and that'll be fabulous. And then we have Costlink. And
Yeah, what?
it blocked what would have been a view corridor to it. Like, well, that won't be a showstopper because you can't see it. That
The
was-
other area that was a little, not contentious, but an area of discussion was the way they designed the housing was extraordinarily expensive. And when you went through the numbers, there were some of us who felt, especially thrifty people like actuaries, that the housing really didn't make sense because the cost per unit was just insane.
Mm.
And there were others that felt it should be a very significant part of it. But that was before we had the Victoria Village
Yeah.
opportunity.
Right.
But other than those two issues, there was really no cynicism or lack of consensus.
So, that's 2018 when this document is published. 2019 happens, pandemic happens. I decide to move here full time. I get involved in the Public Arts Committee. And after about 7 months or so, Philip Vanderneel, the mayor, and Michael's predecessor asked me to have a beer at Angie's business, as we are wont to do. And they asked if I would be interested in leading an effort to fund, build, and operate the Fraser Center. And I said, what the heck is the Fraser Center? They educated me on this vision, said that not much had happened, in part because of the resources of the town, but also in part because of the pandemic. I ultimately decided to take on that challenge. I had a couple provisos, though, when I did that. One is I didn't see how it was economically viable. My background is not in fundraising. It's not in not-for-profits. It's in for-profit enterprises. I've been in C-suite of 3 different firms. I'm used to selling things in order to get revenue, as most of you are. And I just didn't see how a housing-oriented building could make enough money, particularly given that the estimates to build, as Barry pointed out, this very lovely, spectacular building were, and this is 2019, 2020, we're in the $15 to $20 million. So I said, 1, it needs to be more affordable. 2, in order to pay the bills, I need to have a performing arts space. And the performing arts space is going to be filling a gap that this valley doesn't have. There really isn't a good, viable, publicly owned performing arts space for a wide variety of events. So not just music, think plays, think poetry, think trade shows, think weddings, etc. And they agreed that those 2 items could be subject to alteration. Okay. Third thing is Victoria Village by that time had coalesced. And the question I had is, why build a building with 7 affordable housing spaces when we're building an entire village next door with hundreds? And they agreed that that also could evolve, which changes the building. What happened subsequent to that is we decided to develop the mural park and decided, as we recently went through, to move the location to the parcel on the river. So that's all happened in the last few years. I'll show you where that parcel is in a second. Where we are today is we have a new vision for the center. We have about $1.5 million that has been raised. I'll talk a little bit in a second about what the components of that are. If we build the center that I'm going to show you at $400 a square foot, it'll cost us close to $9 million. If it's $500 a square foot, it'll be 11, which is much more attainable. If we raise about half of that money, I can borrow the rest. The state of Colorado has a variety of low interest rate loan programs and bond programs that we can access. I've already talked to the people in Denver about that. They're very eager to support us, but we need to have about half the money. And so we're on the trajectory now to raise that. We created a not-for-profit. Your question earlier about logos, the one logo you may have seen is Fraser Valley Arts. That is the not-for-profit that exists for one reason: to fund, build, and then operate this building. One of the ways we do that is at the Mural Festival, we do the People's Choice Award and we raise some money for this purpose. Plein air at altitude over Labor Day weekend is a fundraiser for this purpose. So that's the tie-in to the town, but it is an independent 501c3. That was important for tax and other reasons. But that's the reason that that organization exists and I lead it. Everybody with me to this point?
You
All
said
right.
fund, build and operate?
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Yep. At which point I hand the keys to somebody else.
That's right.
All right, so before actually, I'll show you the building first. And what we've done here, need to stay near the microphone for Nick, is we re-engage DAO architecture to help us reimagine a new concept with those new factors I mentioned earlier. So what I'm going to show you is relatively new. This was just completed this year and is intended to be the vision against which we execute. I will caution you, however, that this is just conceptual. These are not blueprints. The actual blueprints will come at a later stage and in all likelihood will modify what this looks like. The more money we raise, the nicer the building gets. I deliberately asked DAO, kind of to Barry's point about the tension in the original vision, to keep it pedestrian because I wanted to be able to show people something that was reasonably attainable. If, you know, the Bank of America comes in and wants to dump $12 million on our head, would make this look a lot cooler. So the first thing I would say is, where is it? So, Nick, if I step over here, can you still hear me?
Hey, Steve.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll just talk loud because he can hear me. This is 40. This is the distillery. This is the mural park, which was the original location intention. The town has owned this piece of land. This is the Fraser River. This is the trail. This piece of land right next to, Barry's got his, is it a rick house right here? This piece of land is where the center would go. Coslake, Greg and Kevin and company are building townhomes right here. They have built the new building right there. The land that the center will occupy has been given by the town to the not-for-profit. So Fraser Valley Arts now owns this land for the sole purpose of building an art center. Okay.
Easel's about to fall.
I'm sorry?
The easels is just.
Yeah, I know.
Slowly but slowly.
Everybody got the location?
Yeah.
A couple cool things about this, bridge is right there. So easy access from across the way. Victoria Village will be right here. Coalyard's gonna be right over here. That could be developed at some point. You've got Grand Park, you know, parts of it just over here, and the new development that's going in over there. There are hundreds, if not thousands of people who could walk to the center, which I think makes our community, like, you know, super cool in that there's also a reason for them to walk to have dinner and a beer or a cocktail or go shopping. So part of the logic for moving it to here was to take advantage of that. The second part, as Michael has talked about, is this street right here, Clayton Court. And the idea is Clayton Court gets developed. It gets developed with first floor retail, hospitality, et cetera, businesses on it. Second and third floor residential and so forth. The anchor for this whole area to bring people in would be the center. And the center would have our vision is at least 75 to 100 performing events a year.
Wow.
So think about 75 to 100 times a year in a performing arts space of 175 to 200 people, guests coming to enjoy themselves in downtown Fraser. In addition to that, there'll be 2 studio spaces, a maker space. So throughout the day, there'd be arts and community education efforts going on, also bringing people into town. what we've also tried to build into this, and this is relevant to the economic development conversation, are some outdoor spaces. I'll show them to you here.
Oh, cool.
And the reason for the outdoor spaces is twofold. One, we live in a lovely place, and even with the townhome right next door, we've been comparing notes with Costlig and so forth. We'll be able to see over their building, they'll be able to see over ours. So you have the whole, still have the whole expanse of the divide. But we want to have outdoor spaces in either end of the building, here, and then I'll show you another depiction on the other side back here, so that we can host trade shows, weddings, community events, etc. Again, to bring people to the center, to bring
Awesome.
people into the community, hopefully so they'll then transact other business. The other thing that's kind of fun is there'll be a corridor to the river trail between the townhome and the building, which we intend to make a little bit of a sculpture area. Hint to all of you, keep your eye on the Lions Pond this week. Something very cool is going to be happening there in the next few days, speaking of sculptures.
Haha.
And then what you'll also find is the space right on the river. We have to preserve some space between the building and the trail because of a wellhead there, which is actually pretty great because we're going to turn that into an outdoor park.
Wonderful.
And so as people come down the Fraser River Trail, come across the bridge, they'll be able to interact with the building outdoors as well as indoors. And of course, we decorate it.
So back then, we'll probably plan for the heated sidewalks to be incorporated into this building
Yes.
and that space in between. I think the town helped look at that.
Yes, yeah, and we're part of that conversation around the geothermal thing.
Great.
This is just another view of the outdoors. One thing I will comment on here, and I'm getting close to the end, Sarah, is right now this design contemplates the first floor that is largely given over to parking. The reason for that is our parking challenges in Fraser. As we work through the DDA, as the town thinks about their future, it may work out that we can resolve the parking challenges in other ways, and that lowers the cost of the building. If we have to account for a decent number of parking spaces, it takes longer because we have to raise more money. So that's just one of the tensions that's going on. And here
How many
you can
spaces?
see this has
How many spaces are you planning on?
here 12 plus another 5 or 6 right here.
Yeah,
Depending on
because
the land available.
keep hearing the word weddings, and as a
Yeah.
planner, Headwaters has a problem as well with,
And there's no way that that amount of parking
Yeah.
would accommodate all the guests.
Mhm.
It's anticipating other solutions in the area.
Like
So there's no doubt.
Had a problem with parking.
Yeah.
Do you have a guess how many spaces they already have?
that's what I wrote down. I don't know how many spaces we
It's a
have.
lot.
They probably have at least one.
They also have a viewpoint problem. I don't know.
But it holds like 1,000 people up there or something. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
Oh,
pretty big.
1,000 people with 40 spaces.
I mean, 40
So-
spaces with a wedding count of
At this
120.
stage,
Right.
what do you anticipate capacity being?
Well, so in the performing arts space, which is on the second floor right here, if you think back to this image, this is the performing arts space.
Okay.
It's a flexible space, 175 to 200 seats.
Okay,
The math that the town code and DAO have done would suggest that we'd need at least 35 to 40 parking spaces in addition to whatever the community offers around it to accommodate that type of crowd, given that there's also a lot of folks who can walk and there's free bus system.
Yeah, and that's where I'm like, I'd hate to use space out of that building for parking,
Right.
Mhm.
like concrete.
but nobody will come if they don't have a place to park.
Right.
Right. And we also just saw the Mural Festival where we had literally thousands of people down here and they found a place to park
Yeah.
or walk.
Where did
or
they?
ride
Over the
their bike.
railroad tracks. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
How much space did we have for that event? Because I know there were like parking signs, but didn't need to use it. So what, do you know how many spots were available for them?
I have no idea.
Yeah, okay. I
Fine.
wonder what we have, you know?
Yeah.
There's a big difference between official and unofficial,
That's
right?
true.
Yeah, I think we
That's
have
funny.
a lot of unofficial parking,
That's very
right?
true,
Yeah. Well, and the center lot right now has got recycled asphalt on it for parking, and I was the only person parking there, which I was kind of surprised by.
Well, now it's got costly construction on a third of it.
Yeah, just a little bit of stuff there, which they're actually giving a donation to Fraser Valley Arts to do,
Okay.
which is very good of them.
All right. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because you don't have as much snow storage and you can park more along like the railroad tracks, and right now over by where Victoria Village will be, and I feel like it's more of an issue.
Mhm.
Some of those spaces are filled
Yeah.
with snow.
Yeah.
Cause there's
You
a.
know, it's very expensive, but have you thought of underground parking?
We have, and it's very expensive.
Yeah. And here it's really hard.
It actually came
That-
up in the original discussions. I
About
think,
how
also-
much of an increase in expense?
Oh, it would,
You
it would,
calculate it?
just to do it in this configuration, to add an underground space added almost 40 to 45% to the cost.
Wow.
Yeah.
So far, concepts with supporting parking needs in the downtown area, they're all Clayton Court. Between Highway 40 and Clayton Court, you have about a 10-foot grade drop. So you could actually look at doing some parking there, and that's something that we've been having conversations with landowners. It was their idea, actually. And just kind of initial conceptual plans, but looking at addressing parking in a way that benefits that whole area.
Could the pole yard not be considered as an option for like a community lot with,
It could, but
Too
from
far for walking.
our research, the proximity to parking is
Right.
really. And having that right there to support all those local businesses. is pretty key.
Yeah.
So, I mean, especially if you got kids and you're trying to drive and forget something in the car and you're yelling at your spouse, you know.
yeah,
Those kind of things, it's like, we found that it's really important to have that proximity to parking.
centralized, yeah.
Provisioning that.
Mhm.
Well, and one of the benefits we all have, if you look at the map of downtown Fraser, the Downtown Development Authority, this isn't Denver. This isn't Manhattan, where there's an ossified set of buildings that are already there. There are some, but there's also a lot of open space. So as we go forward, we can be imagining what that future should look like with the help of the town. Gary?
Michael, a couple of years ago, you all provided a parking study to EDAC. And it was actually very interesting and addressed a lot of the issues you discussed. It might be worth just sending it to this group. I might have it somewhere, but it was very interesting. And
I
it said
think
what
that
Michael
to
said.
the group, yeah, I don't know, just looking at, our next meeting before the plan of development is gonna be pretty stacked, but.
We don't have to discuss it. It should be worth everybody
yeah,
reading.
how much that-
It talked about proximity. It talked about areas very similar to what we have. That if you drive to an area, you can't find parking space, you go shopping or dining, you go to the next place. So it was worth a read.
Yeah.
Well, and what also came out of that, I think even more than that, area was just, Fraser is a small geographic area, so you need parking, right? It's problematic. It's also extremely expensive. And in addition to the expense, like it takes up a lot of space, right? You're putting in a lot of concrete for people to store their vehicles. And so it's weighing those pros and cons and thinking about how you can better manage the limited parking that you have. Parking experts and urban planning has really moved in recent times much more towards models of looking at things like shared parking. So if you have a bakery that's open in the morning, a restaurant in the afternoon, an art center that occasionally has performances, how do you utilize parking that can be utilized by all of those businesses versus each business putting down concrete for their own customers, but then that bakery parking lot is empty when people are going to a show in the evening. So I think that's something to think about as we're talking about the plan of development. It's weighing those pros and the cons and thinking about multimodal transportation alongside parking and where you put that parking that it can be best utilized and not, because we could quickly fill up all of downtown Fraser with the desired parking for each location if we're not really thoughtful about where that goes and how it's managed.
And parking structures run right now about $40,000 a space for a parking space.
How about a deck?
I think if you're talking about structures.
Structure,
yeah,
that would be a structure down to
it's
Stephenheiser because concrete's so expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got either underground or a multi-level parking structure.
There's a book that the external committee that was hired with the comprehensive committee that I was on for Winter Park. They said, I think it was Paved Paradise. It's a book about parking. You've heard of it? Sounds like, okay. I have not read it, but I think I'm gonna read it now.
Yeah. Next time you fly and you approach any city, look out the window and look at how much of the land is devoted to parking.
Right.
It's amazing. And then when you fly into Europe, it often is very different.
Yeah.
So something that we'll have to work our way through for sure. Let me just, I'm mindful of time. A couple other things. One, you all have a copy of the kind of 2-pager we put together, which is we call the case for the center that we use at all our fundraising events and that sort of thing. On the back of that is a link to the Fraser Valley Arts website. On the About page, you can see these renderings and a number of additional ones along with this document. Since we created Fraser Valley Arts in January of 2021, we really started active fundraising in 22 when we came out of the pandemic. We've gone from some seed capital, much like the DDA is doing, of about $5,000 from the town from the first couple mural festivals to over $1.5 million. The components of that are 7. So far, we have a thing called the Founders Circle, where an entity, whether it's a foundation, a company, or private citizens, commit at least $30,000. That is our seed money. We're going to cap that at 25 entities. So far, we have 17 members of that group. Organizations like the Grand Foundation, the Town of Fraser, Rendezvous, Bison Investments, and DAO are companies that have committed to doing that. And 12 private individuals or couples have also ponied up that money. So that's been our seed capital to get going. We've yet to hire an employee. We're about to change that probably for next year. And we also then have the land, which we're estimating is worth $750,000. Prove me wrong. But we'll get an appraisal on that done formally once we get a little further down the road. And then there's some grant money that we have received, some of which is in conjunction with the town through a DOLA grant that we did last year that Sarah led. We have about $3 million in grant requests out right now. We did hire a professional grant writing organization. I expect to get 20 to 25% of that money, which is what people tell me is typical for that sort of thing. And one of the challenges we're going through is, in order to go after multi-million-dollar grants, we need to have at least a third to a quarter of the money raised. So we're a few $1,000,000 away from that. Once we cross that threshold, we can go to places like Betcher, El Pomar, and some of the big regional foundations, but they want to see a significant amount of money already in the bank before we do that. How long before this happens? My best answer to that is 3 to 5 years. If we were to have somebody who came in and gave us a couple $1 million to name the building after themselves, that would accelerate things dramatically. I think that is the story. Anything I forgot, folks, that we should mention in way of grounding?
Any questions?
We did talk, yeah, go ahead.
Something that we're currently working on right now, where construction plans are at about 50%, is for the Clayton Court Main Street infrastructure. Sarah procured a grant for that for $1.5 million. We are looking at cost increases with that project, but looking at getting it done and figuring out what the best approach is financially for that. But that is going to be putting in kind of what Katie alluded to earlier. We're right now exploring geothermal for how we could most efficiently heat the sidewalks with snow melt, just anticipating if we have tall buildings on both sides that snow and ice accumulation can really be a problem, and also an extreme benefit for things like the arts facility and all those downtown businesses. Looking at having parallel parking on both sides of the road, 9.25 foot wide sidewalks with street lights, a water line, because there's currently only half of a water line going halfway down Clayton Court. So basically taking this trailer park and turning it into a main street. And it's a big lift, and it's an expensive lift, and it's just something that we're working through, but a lot of excitement with that, and really having part of the part of the saying for these types of projects, if you build it, they will come. And that is very much the theme behind this, and has a lot of good support and motivation from the Board of Trustees in the town, and looking to bring that transformation that I think we all want to see in our downtown, and really, enhance that river corridor that not a lot of communities have, and really the jewel of Fraser, and it's something I think that's going to be a great highlight point for the downtown area.
And to Michael's point, one of the reasons why we were excited about moving the center to here is so that it could be the attraction, right? And bring people in hundreds of times a year to an invigorated community. There's a question.
How's the community? I'm just curious, not to throw a thorn. How's everybody feeling about it? I mean, I know there was a lot of hoopla about the jurisdiction in Winter Park, the trailer park that was moved. There was some discussion of that. I followed some conversations just recently about the development there. And everyone's going to complain about something, but I'm just curious in terms of like community, for us to be supportive to what the community wants and what they're seeing.
Right.
'Cause
So
I know you've had discussions too, and I just haven't been.
So, one thing is, if you walk down Clayton Court versus looking at it on Google Maps right now, you'll see that majority of those trailers, except for one on the west side of Clayton Court, are all gone. And those had walls that were like missing.
Yeah.
I mean, like very decrepit buildings that were really not inhabitable. And those have been cleared. I mean, gosh, 2 years ago, there was probably 15 vehicles parked behind those trailers that were like total vehicles.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's come a long way. And there's been a lot of excitement. I mean, we've had people that have come in for our conversations with Clayton Court. It's been like, we've been trying to do this forever. Like we've been trying to get something going. And it's funny, even Eileen, when she first came onto the board, which was a while ago, so in the post said, you need to do something about Clayton Court,
Yeah.
And for a little while, those some conflict. People were living there, that was
Yeah.
where they lived.
Their home.
That was their home. And that's very much changed. There's still a couple of homes there on Clayton Court. There's still a couple of trailers that people are living in. But they're interested in selling.
I mean, because they
and-
get more
and-
now than.
Yeah, and not us, but interested developers, Bison's I think been part of this conversation. But just looking at, accumulating some of that land and having there's really two major entities that own a lot of land on Clayton Court, and they're looking to work together and have some good uniformity with their development, which is great, I think. And work together to address things like parking and where the road can go when they own both sides of the road, if we need to curve the road a little bit, which is what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So it's been good. I mean, Katie, have you any other thoughts as far as public perception?
The old timers, the development just breaks their heart. But everything changes and everything grows. So I think our job is to do it in a way so that when it happens, they go, well, this is pretty cool. Yeah, this is actually pretty cool. But I think that that's a big part of it. It's just that people hate change.
Yeah.
And there's not much we can do about that. All we can do is guide it and try to make it as good as we can.
Yeah.
One of the things we do every year at the Mural Festival, as well as Plein Air, is we put these renderings out.
Yeah.
And we talk to literally hundreds, if not thousands of people. And I would say it's 98% positive. Now, those aren't just Fraserites. Those are people from all over, not only this valley, but elsewhere. But we get tons of positive feedback and support.
That's great.
Well, I really like that you moved it. I think it's in a much better place now. I think it would have been not cool to some business owners that are sitting in this room because their view got blocked already. And that's my main thing is the view, landscape, and also allowing wildlife to move freely around through that, river area where they should naturally be and have been sort of run out of some and pushed up towards Winter Park more so.
Yeah.
Which is great for them. not great for Fraser. And the other thing I'm concerned about is that in these plans, it doesn't look like to me that there's much shops or any sort of thing that is interactive except the art center along the river itself. It looks like it's moved back away from the river. And in my mind, if you go to Estes or something like that, these shops and restaurants are actually on the river. They're right there. You move
Yeah.
through.
So
I
it's
don't
like
want
here,
that to be
here,
private. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want that to be
Oh.
all privately owned condos. And I mean, then we're looking at an Aspen vibe. Which is
Wait,
not
back up a
that
bit. You're
great.
saying, say that again.
I don't
And this
see.
is 2016.
Okay,
right?
cool.
This
I-
is 2016.
I
so it's
still
in
believe
process.
that talking to some other people on your board, actually, they noticed the same thing. One of them, I'm not gonna mention, but they said that there's no shop fronts along the river there and no restaurant,
Well,
like, so
there
it's
is,
not
there are
commercial.
no plans. So one thing we have to remember, with all due respect,
Okay,
there is no plan yet, right? There
But
is
they're-
no layout.
they're breaking
other than
ground right now,
concept.
right?
There's one building that's breaking ground right here.
Okay,
That's
Yeah,
the
that
townhome.
building, the plans
Cool.
have been approved.
This part that Michael was just talking about, the Clayton Court development.
sure,
It's a concept, it's an aspiration, there's some infrastructure work going in. But
awesome.
we're a long way from physical building blueprint.
So
plans,
do you
'cause
think-
I agree with you, I fish the.
And the
Great,
goal-
yeah,
All the time, and
yeah.
there's restaurants on the river.
It's
super
great.
Cool.
It's great.
Right.
And that's what I want to be sure of here with our board is that in our plan of development, that maybe we push for some of that, that there needs to be so much retail or restaurant space to be more interactive and be able to view that river. Because we don't want to lose our landscape. And if we are going to block landscape from Highway 40, then we need to move it towards, we need to move stuff towards the river so that they can see the mountains and
So the townhomes are occupying most of the riverfront?
No,
Okay, I'm just trying to,
so
it is,
Visualize.
look at
it
the
is in
center
this
building
plan.
here,
yeah,
imagine a similar rectangle to about right there.
okay,
At the moment.
That's the only
for the,
development going in right
Correct,
now,
yeah.
correct?
To Park's
Right.
point,
Yeah, and that's a fourplex.
All of this is still yet to be
Right.
planned.
Awesome.
Okay.
And we can push towards that, right?
but to your
oh, yeah,
Park's point, the one building that's going in does have a restaurant
Yep.
and it's on the west side.
The west side on the
Yes.
river
Yeah.
side?
No,
that's
the other
east
side.
It's on the west side.
There you go.
So
So
we're really going in
that's what I'm talking about.
As for townhomes, the townhomes will be on the river side, they'll back to the river. And in front, there is what I understand to be a bakery going in on the front. And so this area, the Riverwalk District, was rezoned by the Board of Trustees and the Planning Commission over the past year or two.
Mhm, Yeah. just
To
as
make
much
it
here.
mixed use and to require commercial on the frontage.
Yeah, it's
with the
40%,
boardwalk or
isn't it?
something, right?
Yeah, so it does leave that question of,
yeah.
is there commercial on?
It needs to be on the river
river
side, yeah.
Because
Just
what's
in my-
required is
Which is
on
Yeah.
the front.
East
And
side.
you're gonna get way
Yeah,
more,
What
you're
she's
gonna get
saying
way
is
more
gonna be on the
interaction with
west side.
businesses
It's
if
gonna
they
be
can
on the
walk,
side.
because that river walk is gonna be serious.
Yeah, mhm.
And if you, like I said, if you walk through Estes or any other town like that, that is where you drive people, and then that path itself drives people into these businesses. So yeah, I personally, I just think we need to.
Yeah,
push for
and
that,
by
or
the
we're gonna
way,
get screwed. And that's
I-
not gonna be cool. People are gonna be very unhappy if that's all private.
So that's not gonna happen. It's not gonna be all private. There's gonna be public green
Well,
space in the
We
back.
don't know that yet.
Well, I'm probably.
Public green space is much different from
Regulated it
retail.
and restaurants.
Were those original renderings
But you keep your eye
the-
on it.
the
and-
ones with
Oh,
the
I think
boardwalk?
That's all I do.
Do I recall those renderings where there was a boardwalk envisioned off the river? I'm thinking like
The
this was,
Riverwalk is in your strategic plan, right?
yeah, but there was,
No, I remember.
this was from like this was from a while ago.
Yeah.
When parklets were a thing, I'm gonna always go back to that because that's what I remember from that
I
meeting.
don't know.
When y'all were gonna expand the 40. It's kind of in
Okay,
that
so we
same-
know what we want.
Yeah, we know.
Same
Well,
should
and
probably
so
move ahead.
let me just
We'll
make
keep
one
working
comment
towards it,
here, 'cause
the town.
one of the members of our team, Greg, is a partner in what Bison is doing. Please remember that that company, Greg and Kevin, wanted to swap the land out from here so that the community could have that for access to the river. The citizenry chose not to do that. But we have sympathetic developers, to exactly your point, who are part of this team.
Yeah, oh, yeah, and he's not here today.
Yeah. But I want to make sure I acknowledge.
Absolutely.
They share the vision.
Yeah, and I'm not
Yeah.
hating on
100%.
anybody because it's not developed yet, but it just, yeah, I know that if it's just green space in between and there's homes on the other side, that is going to severely upset your economy here.
And does that intersect with the sidewalk? Sorry, I'm going into the details, but does it, like the sidewalk continue through or it becomes the boardwalk? And then,
They've talked about having a few different access
Yeah.
points to the river trail and to the river from there, and
Okay.
looking at maybe like a plaza idea, but like Parks, to your point, as far as advocating for what the community wants, because we've talked to Kevin and Greg about their development. We've told them like what we would like to see. They were here when we went to rezone it, so that it wasn't just a mountain of condos.
Yeah.
And very much the conversation that Katie was a part of as well was talking about, we want to see the green space. We want to have a good, enjoyment of the river and enhancement of the river area. That's not a private land development. But part of the extreme benefit of the DDA is advocating for those things and being able to negotiate in ways that the town can't legally do. And like when you have these proposed developments coming forward, which when we have more on Clayton Court, that's going to be part of these meetings, is here's the planned development. What is there any opportunities that we could work with them as far as incentivizing, working together to help enhance some of the space and help really bridge that connection between what the community really wants and what's going to make it economic feasible for the developer. So that's a huge leverage point for the DDA, is being able to advocate for those types of things, which I fully agree with.
Yep. So we have a chance to create the vision that we're all talking about.
Cool, well, I'll be the one people can throw darts at, because I'll get out there.
I suspect you'll have violent agreement.
But to Park's point, we probably ought to have these discussions sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Because again, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong,
Very much so.
but from what I've heard, right now, the focus of the restaurants, retail, whatever, is on Clayton Court, and it might not necessarily go all the way through the building. That some of it might just be frontage of Clayton Court.
Correct. It's
So it would be
mixed
very
use.
different from what he suggested.
Yeah, and what we have
That's right.
found from conversations with the developers and what developers are looking to do, they make their money in housing right now versus commercial development. And we've
Mhm.
repeatedly heard that it's just really hard to have a successful, profitable business. So I think it's finding ways to develop downtown that helps those businesses be successful. And what that looks like, is that bringing more tourism in? Is it better serving locals? Like, because it's just really expensive to build commercial and start businesses right now. And right now, the developers know they can build townhomes and make money off of them.
I have
So
a
it's
couple-
balancing those private property rights, and what the current zoning is with ways to incentivize the sort of development that the community and the DDA would like to see for downtown Fraser.
Couple thoughts that might enhance that conversation. Number one of the DDA examples you sent us, I can't remember which one it was, but one of the early things they did was they either went out and, it was the Ayers people. They either went out and met with businesses to really draw out from them
Well,
what
and
they
that's what
think
yours
you
is
should.
doing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna be really helpful because businesses are so busy, they don't come to board meetings, et cetera, and they don't describe their challenges and issues and desires. So I think that'll be incredibly insightful when we do that. The other thing I'd like to add with respect to parking is the parking problem is not a Fraser problem. Parking problem is a valley problem.
It's a Grand County.
And when Arrow is finished and looks like it's close to being done, I have no idea if they rented or sold any of it. That's going to be a parking nightmare. And because they don't, if you look at the parking requirements of the code, I don't know if Winter Park's in Fraser. We put in about twice as many parking spaces as the code required, knowing it wasn't enough, but that's all the space we had. And it's not enough. And I assume Winter Park's gonna have the same problem. The reason I bring this up is if we can solve the parking problem better than Winter Park.
Yep.
Then,
Strategic
again, the
advantage.
parking study you sent us a couple years ago said, if I'm gonna go out to dinner, or if I'm going to a bakery, I'm gonna go to a clothing store, if I go there and I can't find parking, I'm gonna drive down the street. So if we can solve that problem, it's gonna be hugely to our advantage. And now I understand there's 1 or 2 hotels going in Winter Park. So the parking nightmare is gonna become worse
And
there.
if you look at Estes, they had the worst parking problem of all time about 10 years ago, and they've been working on that heavily. And what they've done is they bought out these old businesses behind the River Walk area, and they've leveled them and made them into either pay parking if they're close enough, or free parking and back. And then on both sides of the town, they have parking. So that's kind of what they do. They put parking on this side and this side, so it forces you to walk into town and stay in town.
Interesting.
So you spend $1,000 a day versus parking, going into a business, coming out, parking, and then being like, I'm done with my day. I spent $200. I'm happy. No, you're stuck there. And that's really what you're talking about, is pushing people from Winter Park down here. But to create that, they also put a parking garage right on the other side of what is not their art center, but the equivalent to them, right? But $40,000 is a lot of money.
And I had one more comment about parking. We were having dinner somewhere in the Front Range. I don't know if it was Golden or Arvada, because I can't remember anything. But it was a town, let's say it was Arvada, Old Town Arvada, that's way, way, way bigger than us. And they don't have a parking garage, they have a flat lot. And I would assume a flat lot costs more for land, but
Well,
for-
you can always go up the flat lot.
I know, but my point is some big, big areas of Denver that have a lot of restaurants, and I'm pretty sure it's Arvada. They only have a flat lot. If we could find a space like he's talking about, it's gotta cost a very small fraction of that.
Well, if we can get
So
those
that
people
sounds
out of
like
the old
a
Finnegans on the
priority
other side of the Arts Center and
For
drive
us.
that dump out of there, then
They-
that could be
they-
parking.
They just bought 3 of our murals.
You're good to go.
One last thing that I neglected to mention that is germane to this conversation, railroad tracks. I don't know if you've been following, but one of the things, it's a happy outcome. There's no longer nearly the same amount of coal going to the Front Range as there used to be. So the railroads have excess capacity, and they've always been resistant to passenger rail because they didn't have room. They do have it now. The state has jumped on that. There's actually been some legislation passed. The governor is involved. I was recently at the Winter Park Resort meeting. There is a realistic possibility in the not too distant future that we could see 3 to 4 trains a day coming to Fraser, right there from Union Station in Denver.
If we can get our stop and Winter Park doesn't get it.
Yep, exactly. But the other thing that's super interesting, because by the way, it's straight down the road to
Right.
this area. The other thing that I was not aware of that I learned is Alterra, because they own or manage Winter Park and Steamboat, they're thinking about building a large parking structure on the Front Range on the railroad route. So somebody from Boulder could drive to the parking structure, get on the train, get off right here, and walk into the Downtown Development Authority.
Do we have opportunity to incentivize individuals that come up on the train or bike or carpool or in some way, like,
Or use the free bus.
or the bus, like, yeah,
Yeah.
what can we do to
That
Like
was,
the restaurants
yeah.
to
could be like
utilize
$5
all the
off.
capacity?
Really? So,
Exactly, or
within the
if
resort,
it's a
you would
pool that
program
all
like
of
a
the
couple years ago?
businesses
Yeah.
give a $5 coupon and it gets you somewhere or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, or they get it on the
reduce
bus.
At the art center, I don't know.
Yeah.
We love it.
But I think
love
that
parking.
that's also an opportunity. And I had one question also for Clayton Court. 3 to 5 years for the art. What's the timeline, rough on Clayton Court?
Infrastructure.
That's right.
We need to finish the construction documents.
That's why I have-
Once we finish construction documents, we're gonna get the finalized estimate for that.
Okay.
Right now, we have $2 million between grants and dedicated funds from the town.
Works great.
Estimates are looking to be about double that.
Okay.
So it's gonna be figuring out the finances and evaluating our options as far as getting that structure in. I think there's a way to do it. It's just having a conversation and looking at what our options are. And once we have the finances for it, then it goes out to bid. It's based on whoever's gonna construct it.
That's right.
So finishing construction documents, so about a month, we should be finishing the design for the construction documents. Once we get to that point, it's gonna be looking at the finances. So, I mean, as far as long as we're able to line up the finances and get board approval for moving forward with that, I would anticipate construction kicking off next spring, next summer. You know, I see that taking probably a year for finish.
But Fraser has a high chance of getting that station over Winter Park because we already have accessibility to it, to the train tracks closer into town. Winter Park it's way more outside of town or further back
It's
into
complicated. to get back
the
there.
like housing district back there, like Vasquez. And they would actually have to build up to it as well.
Oh.
We don't have to do that at all.
Right.
What they're looking at is at the resort, having that stop at the resort,
Yeah, and that's I pick up my parents all the time. It's not simple.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Oh, yeah.
this
Yeah.
is so simple.
It's one thing
I don't
for
think the
skiers.
resort stop is a big threat, right?
No,
No, I don't think we could have one here too.
Totally.
And honestly, it doesn't really, you just elaborate a little bit, put more detail into what we have, really.
Yeah, that's what I've always
Right,
said. It's like
dress it
it
up.
makes
Yeah.
sense if there was an overhang like off the stairs, because my parents always like come down from the overhang.
Yeah.
And then if they're in the elements, because they're arriving versus departing.
Yep.
There's just like a disconjunction there. I could
Right.
get into it.
And
but-
that's, again, that's an Amtrak station and something that we work with them on like safety issues and different things. They are looking at reconstructing it to shift down the whatever area you wait for the train at, shifting that away from Eisenhower Road.
Okay.
And putting in another staircase up. So they are looking at designing all of that. And with that, we can definitely advocate for just a better platform with coverage over the stairs. And they're actually looking at putting in heated sidewalks, so they don't
Wow.
have to deal with all the snowplow issues.
I mean, as is, it's still amazing. Like a complete luxury, I feel like.
Cool.
Okay.
All of
They
this
turned it.
nicely into,
Thanks,
starting
Sarah.
a conversation around kind of the vision for Fraser and for the DDA and what we want to see in the plan of development. So Ayers did provide some questions that they thought would be helpful for us to start with in terms of framing that conversation. And so we've got some of their questions and some other thoughts. I do want to make sure just people are kind of keeping in mind the boundaries of the Downtown Development Authority as we talk about this. A lot of focus, I think, is going to be on this Riverwalk district and kind of the core of downtown. But we want to make sure our plan of development encompasses possibilities for all of the district. Keeping in mind as well that there's also always possibilities for areas to add it into the Downtown Development Authority as long as they are adjacent.
Does that require a vote from the
That-
voters?
That would require landowners to petition the board and for the board to approve it.
Oh, it doesn't go, it's not a vote?
No, it doesn't go back to the voters. Yeah. So it has to be adjacent. It has to be connected to current boundaries. But then if a landowner wanted to, a property owner wanted to be part of the DDA, they would petition and it would be this board's decision to accept them into the DDA.
And Highway 40,
Doesn't
it
it
could
have
be
to-
across Highway 40. As I
I'm sorry.
I thought that had to happen soon, right? Like it has to happen before the plan of development.
No,
So that's what.
no, it can happen at any point. Ideally, it would happen before they, in terms of revenues, it would happen if it's an undeveloped property before they develop it. So then you would get the increment from that. So looking at the boundary map, it does include Victoria Village. The idea was that way we could spend money on workforce housing, not so much that we would get increment from Victoria Village. Because a lot of this as affordable housing won't necessarily be bringing in property taxes. There are some for sale units that are envisioned. Grandkids Early Childhood Center is looking to expand into Victoria Village, because we've also recognized the lack of childcare as being a critical issue and really affecting the workforce and economic development. Obviously kind of the core downtown areas over to the railroad. And down, it does include the Murdoch Center. Clerk Lipson had requested that his properties not be included, so that is why they are carved out here. It does go down to Vicious Cycle and the bank down here. And then the Board of Trustees had wanted the Lions Pond areas to be included. It's a master plan that we haven't really talked about, but we do have a master plan for the Fraser River corridor that calls for trying to conserve that critical waterway and wildlife habitat while also activating it with recreational amenities, particularly around the Lions Ponds area. So I will send out that link because I don't think I've previously done that, but I did just print out 2 pages from that master plan.
And it's one of the reasons why we're putting sculptures in there from a public arts committee standpoint, and we hold fire and ice there as part of that activation.
Well, I'll get to that, get back to that. But as we're thinking about what we want to see and what we want to have included in the plan of development, keeping in mind that, again, the recommendations are generally that it be kept fairly general, that it kind of provide an overarching vision, but we might not know of a specific project that bubbles up 20 years from now, right? And so kind of having those bigger buckets and categories. So we'll go back into reviewing some of the stuff we've already talked about and some of the questions that AIRS specifically provided that they thought would be helpful to talk about before they arrive September 9th. But before we get into all the nitty gritty and end up spending all the time talking about parking or something else that could be a rabbit hole, I passed out some Post-it notes and wanted you just to jot down a couple words or a phrase that just kind of encompasses your vision for the Downtown Development Authority and for Fraser. Like just kind of the essence of what you would want to make sure is captured in this plan. So I want to make sure we keep that in mind and don't lose that if we start to get into more of the weeds or the details.
Do you want one idea per like little thing?
Sure. But yeah, feel free to do a couple if you like. And I just want to make sure we circle back to these again so that those bigger ideas and visions don't get lost as we get down into things like parking and all that fun stuff.
While we're about to do that, I stepped out for a minute, and when I walked in, I think Parks or someone talked about competition among areas. And I think you're talking about the train, but one of the things I'd like us all to think about is there's going to be enormous competition for businesses and customers over the next 10 years or so. If you look at what Alterra is saying, they are very, very focused on creating a whole new base that has more housing, more restaurants, more retail. Their goal is to get people to come in and stay there and eat there, et cetera. And then Cooper Creek owners, the Johnson family, they own the land that goes from like the police station all the way to the resort. And they're planning, the first thing the resort's planning is a ski out before there's a gondola. And the family that owns Cooper Creek is looking at a massive development there because it'll be really easy for people to go park, take a bus or whatever before there's a gondola to the resort, then ski back and eat and drink and shop, et cetera. So one of the things I'd like us to think about is that there's going to be enormous competition for what we want in Clayton Court and everywhere. On the other hand, they've huge challenges also.
Well, that's why they put in a fire station up there. That's what's going in next to that light.
Oh, that's
Because they're about to put in a grocery store, all kinds of stuff.
that
up.
worked well with the first Winter
G-Lot
Park
is about
grocery
to
store.
become a whole new village. I'm not kidding you.
You're going to put in a
G-Lot will
grocery
be
store?
developed into a village. Yeah. That's what they're doing. Yep.
Wow.
Oh,
So I think
you know too. That's great.
So on that note, what is your vision for downtown Fraser?
Real man, real man.
Are we sharing these?
Build a new fire district.
Yes, I was going to try to, yeah.
What does the perfect downtown look like to you? Fraser?
I mean, I think like
Michael
Rob
would
was
call
speaking
this
of-
your frisson.
For sure. I mean, I think just like what folks said at the boundary, I mean, I think it's more, it's connected it. And I think the Mural Arts Festival, especially with how many people were here, like, it was nice to see like people just walking through, you know?
Uh-huh.
I was in Steamboat recently. It's like, yeah, people are just walking, you know, it's like you're talking about the way things are set up or different. And I think,
is exactly what he's talking about.
yeah, and I think just the connecting, you know, from one end to the other, I think is just my biggest, you know, my biggest piece, right? I walk back and forth multiple times a day, and it's weird when you walk back and forth and you don't see anyone, you know? And so I think
So having that
Ki-
connection and
connecting in like
walkability.
all parts, you know, Fire and Ice is another great example. Like that was great, but yeah, I parked at my own business and walked through, right? You know what I mean? Like that stuff is fun, and I think the more connection from, you know, yeah, north to south, south to north, whatever, I think is important.
Anybody else?
I've got a pile, public transport access, walkable community. I can give these to you.
Yep.
Arts, entertainment year round, not just the summer. Activate the riverside and work play options off of 40.
I think for me, like target a variety of lifestyles, not just like pigeonholing ourselves into one concept. I mean, I walk everywhere. Obviously, I live right there, and I do feel kind of like it's kind of like a food desert. Like there's like and like there's no nightlife. Everything's done at 9. Like I can't we played softball last night, and I couldn't get dinner after 9 o'clock. You know, because so I think that'll bring a younger crowd in too. Like if we had like more late, like safe nightlife too.
From the
And just-
Uber's
and-
era, like, I
yeah,
get it.
yeah, like-
I did it for a long time. It
Yeah.
was great. It was so much fun. And that's why I stayed.
Yeah, I feel like just
Yeah.
I have to go to Winter Park to do a lot of things that I want to do because we can be family oriented, we can be arts oriented, but we have to adhere to like there's a huge variety of populations that we need to target as well. So I do sometimes feel left out because I don't have kids and I'm under these things. So it's like I have to go to Winter Park to do things that I want to do. It's like nightlife. Or even just like I want a glass of wine. Can't really get a glass of wine in Fraser. You can get beer, you can get cocktails, you can't get wine.
I'll share Nick.
Oh, we have the winery.
Right?
Well, yeah, but they close
Not
at 5.
open
They
what-
close
like,
at-
yeah,
it's
that's
never open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like noon to 5.
Fine, like, it's not conservative.
What happens?
Yeah.
Wine goes after.
Nice beer.
Wine, right?
Right.
So Nick has shared a comment. Fraser needs to focus on entertainment attractions to not only bring in business from locals year round, but to bring people like my eyes
Into
are
the
bugging.
area. Food and drink is important, but not enough to bring people into the area, attracting business and activities. People want to do, attracting business activities people want to do needs to be our absolute top priority.
Yeah.
It was easier for me to see.
I was just thinking like the Lions Pond, like do like a paddleboard rental in the summer
Oh,
and like
yeah, that's
ice
wonderful.
skating rental in the winter. Like put people there that's outside. It's fun. It's
That's a
different.
wonderful idea for
yeah
that area.
for that area.
Yeah,
Especially like
one of my
Two of
thoughts
us.
was really bringing in like when I think of the downtown of Fraser, since it's such a small community, is bringing in Grand County. Like, what is Grand County? Kind of, we're all in this valley for a reason. One of the things was mountain recreation, like bringing in ease of mountain biking, and I mean, we have the trails right here directly from the downtown. So bikes, like locking bikes, signage, come down here after, get a drink, whatever. Skiing, tons of cross-country skiing opportunities in this
Yeah.
downtown. You need to bring that in. Hiking, I love that little rock climbing wall at Idlewild or wherever in Winter Park. Like do that. Fishing, we have the wonderful thing. Another comment was I just really love the history of Fraser, and I don't think it's brought out enough. Susie was a wonderful person. There's so many other wonderful people of our history that made it that people don't know about, and I feel like we need to keep that as well, not just the future.
And I kind of wanted to piggyback that because I'd mentioned it to you, Sarah. like even as if buildings do go that are historic, like those barcode systems that people can scan and be like, this used to be, I think, Ingrid's original upholstery place used to be a meat or deli stop or something.
Yeah, it's a cafe a long, long time.
Like,
ago,
so
too.
some of those
Yeah.
historical points could be like easily accessible, and it doesn't need to be something structurally
Okay.
expensive. It could just be like
Yeah.
on the, like, it could be a map of like
Yeah, like a
all the
history trail, like a history trail, and you could like show like these QR codes and what was there and the history behind that particular building. It'd be
Do you
so
guys
cool.
know what Xeric Street was, what the history was?
Yes.
So cool.
No.
I don't know exactly what it was, but it was some kind of oil product or gas product that they were trying to use at cold elevation.
Antifreeze.
CRX is antifreeze,
Yep,
and
cool.
you probably know better. There was a competition between a place in Minnesota and here for the coldest spot.
Right.
Mm.
Icebox.
Great Falls, Minnesota.
Before global warming.
They got we sold out for $20,000 for the icebox racing, and then they let it go. And we almost took it back, but the skier was quite relieved when they gave up that title.
And
Keep the sign up.
I'm gonna push
Huh?
through my post-its if it's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
It goes
Yep.
off of also what you were saying, Tiffany. The educational stands, I think there's a couple at the Windy Gap. This is just me being cheesy as a mom. Like with the kids, it's always fun to go over there and like press the animal buttons and hear the bird calls.
Yeah.
Do they keep working and need maintenance? I'm sure might be a money suck there, but I think that the educational stands would be really cool. They have them at the beginning of the Winter Park side of the trail, or maybe they're all the way through for Fraser Trail. Do they-
We have educational signs on the Fraser River and we have some grant money to put more in. We're working on a wayfinding project with Winter Park to make the signage more uniform.
Okay.
And kind of waiting for that to go through in terms of kind of design standards and things like that. Because yeah, the ones we have on like the Fraser River Trail right now are super faded and crumbling and
They're hard upkeep with their
they need a
elements.
facelift for sure. Yeah.
You know, what's fun
Um,
though, is I like that concept. You could just do a QR code that you could do your phone and then it just takes you to a sound. And it could be the sound of like, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
moose or
Right.
the
But
That's
eerie
really
sounds
cool.
of the fox, you know, and
yeah, no maintenance
things.
on them.
Even about like plant life and
Speaker.
vegetation.
Yep.
I think it's really, it'd be really cool to have some sort of like tree thing. Being from the South, I'm still like, you know, amazed by some of that.
Yeah.
Water filling stations, I don't know how technical that is. I think someone's talked about the one here at the park. But I think like continued water filling stations.
We just got one at the bathroom at the Lions Ponds and they're putting one in here, but
Nice.
yeah.
Flat areas with shade. So, like natural shadeways. So I think that was also discussion in my application. So having like a mandatory landscaping agreement with developers to replant vegetation or create natural shade versus just shade structures. It's just really harsh climate, right, for any tourists coming through. Connectivity, and I still wish there was maybe there is light on the pavement for bikeways, but like a natural for people that don't have headlamps at night for like safety travel to and from Winter Park. And then last but not least, this might be a thorn, but accountability for homeowners and or properties that don't upkeep that, you know, in this area. I'm in one of those establishments. I don't know why our HOA does not care for the bridge that is in that right off of Doc Susie. But there's like some safety concerns where I'm like still pushing on our HOA to fix that bridge. And I'm like, I wish the town would just go after them and have us solutionize it because it's a safety concern and the connectivity is lost. So people like will walk on the street versus, you know, safe sidewalk. So I just don't know how that works though with holding people accountable. You can't just like.
Yeah, let's circle back to that. We only have about a half hour
Okay.
left, so I want to keep it kind of framing questions, but that's the role of the DDA, and that is a good question.
Okay, cool.
Some of it's advocacy more than anything, but also working with potentially the planning commission and the town board in
Yeah.
terms of making suggestions towards the town code and then code enforcement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Other larger vision pieces.
I'll give mine. It's really simple. I would like us to be viewed as the place to go. in the valley. And that requires a mix of recreation, arts, shopping, eating, businesses, livable space, so that people that come either as tourists or the Front Range or weekenders say, I really need to go to Fraser. I can't tell you how many times I'm at a community event and I'll meet people that live in Winter Park. They go, oh, I just don't drive to
I was
Fraser. it's
about
too
to
far."
say that I lived in Winter Park for
Mm.
5 years before moving to Fraser last year, and I said the same thing, like, I'll never live in Fraser. Like, that's.
No, people don't, I don't have to
But
live here.
no.
They don't even want to drive
Well,
here.
yeah,
It's so
I know.
far.
Exactly. No, that's, when I say that all the time, that's what I said, like, oh, Fraser's too far, I don't want to go there. But now that I live here, like, there's such an opportunity, and I think that we could definitely compete, if not out-compete for Winter Park in the near future if we really focus, because like, I was one of those people, so
Yeah.
my mind has been changed.
I
And I
mean,
think we
look
can
at what-
change a lot of other people's minds too.
Look what we have to start off with. We've got the Lions Pond, we've got the Fraser River Trail, we'll have the Riverwalk District someday, we'll have an art center someday. But what we really need to do as a DDA is focus on what we have now and a really strong transition plan, because that's what people at the resort in Winter Park are doing. But we have the ability to have everything.
I
And
have a-
fun.
Quick comment off of that too, to make it more attractive than Winter Park. It's just like, I don't know how the DDA kind of accountability, but of just aesthetics, like flowers, landscaping, everything like that. For example, I was just in Wisconsin and my family wanted to go to a bar because it was prettier outside versus this other bar that had better food and beer. But it's just like one of those things, like, how do we get it more attractive? Making it more attractive looking.
And I think the plants, our plants are like
I think,
Mhm.
yeah.
killing it compared to Winter Park. I think
Yeah.
they made a big change.
Yeah, they are
Great.
gorgeous
Great,
this
yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Those
The
gorgeous.
town's done a really good job this summer. It's very nice.
Yeah, the gardening.
In the medians.
I mean, I think they lost their lead person in Winter Park.
Yeah, Kathleen, who heads our team, is awesome, and she's been fully staffed for the first summer in a while. So,
But the covered bridgeways
Yeah.
with like the plants, I think in Winter Park, you know, some of those like probably really expensive, but small details.
nice
you know.
touches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if CDOT would allow it. I think we've talked about this before, but a lot of this comes to parking, getting people off of Highway 40. And if there's a way, I know they only allow certain cuts on the road, but if we did end up with a parking structure on Highway 40, on the right-hand side, just around that narrow section and just past it, Alpine Physical Therapy, where you could have a right turn in
Where are you
Mhm.
talking about?
and a parking structure,
Where?
and it would be in our development area.
Just a yield.
But right off of Highway 40. So for northbound traffic, which is, I believe, the majority of the people that are coming here to visit and stay. This eastbound traffic are the people that have been here and are leaving. But to be able to have something where you could say, okay, and they can just take a right turn and pull right into it. And if need
What do
be, you know,
What about into the town center? Like,
the
Um,
town center.
I'm never been there. I should be there eventually.
So anyway, that's just a thought, somewhere.
Yeah,
And they're
visitors
very
center,
expensive.
right?
Let's
But
try to keep going on the higher level, just because
Okay,
I'm looking at
higher,
the clock
bigger
and
vision.
ears will let you
Yeah,
dive
sorry.
down into
I went back to
nitty
parking.
gritty.
Yeah.
But any
That's
other
cool.
overarching kind of vision pieces that you just want to have out there?
Well, I think personally that as a serial entrepreneur, I've been taught to collaborate and not compete. And I think that there needs to be incentives for people to collaborate as businesses, whether you're doing the same thing or not. Because there's overflow everywhere, and that's what's happening in Winter Park right now. If you go to Winter Park for Thursday night music, half the time you drive around 3 times and just leave. And the reason why is not because there's not room inside of there for your body. There's nowhere for you to go or park or any of that. But that means that the overflow can come here, because I know a lot of people that go up there on Thursday night and they just say, screw it, I'm not dealing with this. I don't even want to try. So if you're not riding your bike there, and if we have the same sort of stuff going on here, if we have that proper amphitheater over there, or you know, things happening at the arts center or whatever, especially over there by Lions Pond, because of the fact that it's so visible. If there's 100 people out there and you know, a screen that's up, people are naturally going to be attracted there. And they're gonna realize that it's less of a hassle than going to the more populated place. So I'd say if we can figure out a way to collaborate with businesses and create incentivize that, and then also make it very, very visible for and very easy to get to our attractions. Like the dirt park is great, but you're just gonna stare at 5 kids jumping. It's not gonna be that big, you know? So you're gonna rip it down in 10 years from now. 20 years from now, you're gonna be like, we don't need this dirt jump park. And that's the problem. You're never gonna do that with an art center. You will never do that with an amphitheater. It will always evolve and change. You will do that with that. Even in Arvada, you drive by their dirt park, there's not one person there. There's not one person in the Frisco dirt park.
Okay, let's try to stick to the big vision. We are not planning to tear it down
But
in
it's
10
not-
years,
it's not
otherwise I would be
inviting-
planning to
it's
build
not
it, but I
inviting to
appreciate
your
the
family.
perspective.
It's not inviting to you. It's inviting to like a very, very small niche, and that's what we need to do with the DDA. We need to make it very inviting for
Yeah.
all people.
Well, and the idea of the bike park, which I did bring this just to again, it's part of within the DDA
It's a lot of
boundary,
space.
is that it originally was geared towards little kiddos on striders and just learning to ride their bikes. And the message that we have repeatedly heard is that they're going to outgrow that really quickly. So have something they can move up through. So trying to have some more intermediate skill features. So it does have a pump track and a couple smaller jumps and a kid's bicycle playground.
Can we pass that around?
Yeah.
Jen?
I'm gonna jump on the collaboration piece real quick, because at the top of each of my 3 pieces of paper I got, collaboration was at the top of one of them. And what I meant by that was very similar, just the businesses, the locals and the visitors all collaborating together to create something for everyone, whether you live here or you're coming here to stay for the day. And I love the idea when we were talking about parking, like collaborating with the space that we do have, but we all should be utilizing what we have. I also put engagement just with arts, business, stores, shopping, eating, events, things like that. But the one I don't feel like we've touched on a lot is just sustainability. And with that, I put, recreation, that is something for everyone, preserving some of the spaces that we do have, but also bringing the outdoor fun, I think that Tiffany brought in. But the number one thing I really think we need to focus on is not number one, but that hasn't been talked about yet is transportation and how we can bring people in here without a car.
Yes.
And how we can, I think we have a good bus system. We could have a better bus system. Can we have a people mover from a place outside of town that brings people in easily? I don't know. But I just think that we're focused so much on parking where we should be focused on, like, how else can we why do you want to come into town? Can I park my bike? Can I bring my e-bike in and feel okay that it's not going to get stolen? Like, just all of that, right?
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that I contribute.
I think having
Nice.
charging ports.
Yeah, charging, like things like that. I just
Yeah.
think of other things besides the car.
There's not enough bike parking. I bike all the time. and I
Mhm.
never have a place to put my bike.
Yeah, we put ours in our shed at our property
Exactly.
because we don't.
Individual places have them, but I think
Yeah.
not like in the center of town like that, like huge bike parking would be an incentive. I think we were talking earlier, like we want tourists to park their car and never drive again. Like park it at
Right.
an Airbnb and then take the bus, take the bike,
Yep.
rent something, whatever, be
Like a
able to
train.
walk. Like
Like a train.
Like,
But
that's-
incentivize
that
them
would
to
be-
do
that would-
that. Like, can we tell the businesses like $10 off rent a bike rental, or I don't know, like what, how
Yeah,
are we
that's part of the
promoting it?
collaboration.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
collaboration is,
I think
I like
it'd be
that.
enormously appealing to say the typical Denverite to know that they could get on a train at Union Station
Yep.
and never touch a car until they get back.
And a lot of our friends that do come up that own a property that are coming up on the weekends, that's what they do.
Mhm.
They come up, they park their car and they never get in their car. And when we go visit places, that's what I'm looking for.
Mhm.
Is I want to park my car and not ever get back in that car. I'm gonna do everything that's walkable, bikeable.
On your art center, the coolest thing I heard there collaborative wise was that you talked to the other building owner and you guys made it so that you could see over each other's buildings.
Yeah. that's huge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, Barry got screwed right off the rip. And that's gonna happen more and more, because we have to go up. And especially over there in Grand Park and all of it, luckily they're not our problem right now, but like, that's gonna happen a lot. We're gonna keep going up, and we need to figure out a way to where they can do exactly what Steve did here, and collaborate with the other buildings so that we don't have this issue where you can't see things. Cause I hate sitting down at a restaurant and like staring at a brick wall or looking at, luckily a mural's cool, but it's not what you want to see when you're here. You want to see that as you're driving through, walking through. You want to look at the landscape and you want to look at the wildlife, which is slowly going away
Mountain
because
views.
of,
They're all in my backyard.
yeah, they're mine too, because they
they're being
don't go
forced
into the
away,
meadows
yeah.
anymore, and a lot of problems there.
Another thing I wanted to add, and I know the town is really working on it now, but I think it would be good just to collaborate with them through the DDA, and that is just stormwater.
We're actively doing a stormwater management plan or master plan right now. And,
There's a lot of things that the DDA can assist with
Right.
in design and more environmentally friendly stormwater control structures and education and a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, Tiffany's involved in that effort.
Can
Can
I
I go
just
back to something?
add a
Andy said?
10-second one?
Yep.
Because 40 is smack dab in the middle of the DDA, when I drive to Utah to go skiing at Soldier Hollow, every single town that I drive through on 40 has a sign over the highway promoting events. We do not. And it seems like a huge wasted opportunity.
I don't think we have the infrastructure.
We did that in Winter Park. We did that in Winter Park. They used to hang banners across
Yep.
there. But the wind gets so ridiculous, so you need something solid for
Yep,
that, is what
yep.
I'm saying. You
We'd
can't
have
make
to
hay
build
with
it.
it
Grand Lake is
anymore, yeah.
building one.
And as
You know,
Sarah
okay.
Wick and I were talking about, make it
We-
electronic. And that way, every week it could be something new. As you drive the Safeway, you have to go underneath it and it brings you to Fraser.
It's a highway sign, it's just.
Didn't Grand
Yeah,
Lake-
We have to be careful with that. Put in the LEDs over.
Yeah, I saw the sample of the Grand Lake,
Something
like
nice.
they're using
Nice.
ski cables.
Huh.
for- Did you not, did no one see that one yet? The
Mm-mm.
prototype? Cause they're doing the canoe school, a boat building school out there.
Yep.
And the architect, they built the entryway, like an arching entryway. And it's stunning.
It is gorgeous.
Could we do something like that? Is that what you're envisioning? Or are you envisioning more of like the informational?
I'm taking advantage of the fact that tens of thousands of cars drive down
Yeah.
40 every day.
Yeah.
And if we want to bring them into Fraser, they have to go, in order to go to Safeway, they have to come past
Yeah.
that. We should have some way of making them informed about what's great about this community.
Mhm.
See, that sounds like an arts committee thing. Make it all.
So as we're thinking about the plan of development, keeping in mind that those are things that would be, then we would want to have a bucket for marketing, branding, placemaking, that sort of thing, right? And then the work plan can have some of these different priorities, like signage, or whether it be specifically over Highway 40 or otherwise. So we can beg, borrow, and steal from other plan of developments. I think that makes sense, as long as we're also thinking about what's unique to Fraser and what's important in Fraser. So I think it's that game of balancing in your head what we uniquely want to see for Fraser, and then thinking there's a lot of great plan of developments out there that have already been done. They've been tried and practiced. What might we use to help inform ours? So AIRS will be here September 9th through 11th. We should have led with this. I know I included it in the email, but the town of Fraser did approve the IGA. So that has been signed. We have that seed money to pay AIRS for that effort. AIRS, this is their take on the plan of development. They said at its core, DDAs are about leveraging TIF to promote private investment. This doesn't just mean new developments. It should be focused on helping existing businesses grow and expand and building a sustainable downtown economy where locally owned businesses can thrive. Big new developments will bring people downtown to live and work, which can help local businesses. So focusing on facilitating that development builds a sense of shared purpose and community. So I think it's doing that, also keeping things like sustainability in mind. Do we want this to be something that is just for wealthy tourists? Do we want it to be for locals? Is there a way that we can build something that's more of a mixed economy and environment. I'm going to go through these really quickly. I'm going to skip these for the sake of time. We've already talked about these. But just as we think about the variety of things that could be included, and again, making sure we have those buckets that are most important to the DDA, and then actual things like utility lines or stormwater can come within those buckets, but just making sure we have those in place. Not going to go back through here since we don't have too much time left. But as we think about what we want to, have in downtown Frayser, recognizing some of the different stuff. What did I do? That we can build upon. I printed out part of the Frayser Strategic Downtown Plan that is not the whole plan, but kind of gets, I think, to the essence of the parts that the DDA might be more focused on. As I mentioned, that Frayser River Corridor Master Plan, I think, is worth looking at. Specifically, it does have elements that focus on conservation and preservation, which I think are as important as well. But in terms of the economic development, downtown development piece, the area around the Lions Ponds being activated with recreational amenities is probably the most relevant. And then we've previously talked about these. I'm going to go again, just real quick, want to see if there's anything that anybody particularly wants to highlight that we haven't already talked about. Bill, you started off talking about just being able to be out and about and walking and connectivity. I see the current kind of poor walkability around town as being a challenge that I would love to see the DDA take on. And I think would be really important to economic development in Frayser. If there's anything here that you don't want to see in there or disagree, you can give that a quick shout out. Others will keep moving to the airs questions. And these were what came out of a previous workshop with the town board and the public.
I would comment that on their prior page, the rideshare option point, particularly if that train thing happens, we're going to have to figure that out because urbanites are used to not planning ahead, stepping off a train and dialing up Uber.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be Uber, but we'll need a solution.
And it says ensuring preservation of the Frayser River and green spaces, but also that needs to be protecting the public gathering spaces and the views of those, because that's a big part of that, because it should be like cohesive.
Is there, I'm thinking like just like information sharing, right? Like all the things we're talking about different plans, different developers, right? Versus like what different ideas we have, you know, what's in place, right? What's just in planning stages, what's actually, you know, taken. I think there could be some, I'm going to call it information sharing between the DDA, even maybe just compiling information in one space, right? We could help take the brunt from the city developers and try and maybe more share of like, hey, here's what's, you know, here's what's planned and approved and happening. Here's what's open, right? Here's what's not. And I know that doesn't really connect with, you know, hard structures and things like that. But even just learning more the last few months myself, it's hard to find this in one spot, which it would be helpful, I think, for, again, town, us, developers, you know, locals, visitors, everyone to have one place where like, hey, we're not saying that this is our plan, but this is one place where you could get some more information and maybe help buffer each other, right?
Like that.
We may need help with the city with some stuff and say, hey, I don't want to tell these people they can't keep their junk cars in their yard, but you got to kick them out, right? And then vice versa. It would be nice to compile some of that in maybe one single location that could share the brunt of like, hey, we'll take some flack for some stuff will go back to the city. But there's a lot of moving pieces that's hard
To see what's
keep track
active.
of. Yeah.
Pending.
You know, thinking about like, yes, we got a plan for the future, right? So what's already done, right? That no sense in complaining, right? Developers got it's done, right? This is happening. How do we connect that while also making sure that we are, you know, supporting what's already in place, what is already happening versus what is still out for debate that we can help shape.
And the participation of people being able to add into that with the town. If you look right now, we have maybe 4 participants. That's a problem. And this is an exciting meeting. This is exciting stuff. We are an exciting board. And you go to the town board meetings, less. That's way less. You're sitting there for an hour and a half waiting to hear something cool. We've been discussing cool stuff this whole time. The town wants to hear. We have to have a way for them to start being a part of this, where there's 65, 100 people participating, maybe not in here, but getting this information, because this is what people want to hear right now. They don't
Yeah,
want
it
to
is.
hear
People
about
comment.
Clark's Land. They want to hear about this.
People, if the chat's not open, they can raise their hands.
And that's what I'm thinking. It's like
Yeah.
it's a little daunting. I mean, we all went through it. Like it's hard to sit here at a town board meeting, right? And yeah, previous to coming to part of the DDA, everything was because you were disagreeing. That's the only time you showed up, right?
Right.
You know, so
And I
if we had an open forum, that maybe it was a little bit easier to, get
Submit
some information
questions.
out there, get some
I
questions.
think eventually, but right now we have so much planning and tasks that we have to accomplish as a DDA
Yep.
board.
Yeah.
In order to take advantage of that significant tax increment
Mhm.
from our new construction.
I know we talked about doing a
So
I
survey.
think
save
that's
adding
excellent.
the rest of
questions.
this for the later. I think that
Right.
we really need to.
When, do you know
focus
when
right
that's
now on
gonna
getting
be?
our
That
work
survey is
100%.
live.
It's live, so, okay,
Yeah,
we already
Like you
have,
say,
we
getting-
already have questions out to the public. That's already at live, she said.
Yeah, and we need to work on promoting it. Sarah Wick, who does a lot of our the promotional stuff, that survey went live just as Mural Fest was starting. But we're going to be promoting that at Picnic in the Park. It's up on our website. Well, the town comprehensive plan people, Cushing Terrell, who we're working with, are going to be at Picnic in the Park August 27th. So that's going to be open through the first part of September. So we'll get the word out on that. I think that segues nicely into the question of the DDA's role and how you see yourself. If it is just projects, advocacy, I think as information conduits, you guys can definitely serve a role, be it through a DDA website. I think we can do a lot of work with the town of Fraser website and making that more user friendly. Cause like we do have a web page. We do have a page within our page that's got all the various different kind of plans and studies that the town has done, but I only know that because I go in there and I Google Fraser Recorder Master Plan. I'm going to pull it up and it comes from that page, how we can better get that out to
But
the
it-
public at large.
If there was a DDA social media page where there was just a weekly poll where it was like, it's just scheduled to say questions, concerns, people submit, it could be on any subject or we could specify. And then we'd bring it, I know it's a can of worms, it's scary, right?
Boy.
But it could be like, it could be 10 comments one week on one thing, we fly through them, we set us up on a timer, say, hey, we're gonna fly through these community subjects. And then we, close the door on it, but I think that like that is probably the easiest way to get social input on, the multitude of things we're gonna be going through.
Yeah.
We all are a part of this and became part of this board because this is exciting to us. And a lot of people in town feel like what they say, especially the old timers, doesn't mean anything. So they don't come, especially to the town board meetings.
And they're not on
Because
social media.
it's super hard for anything to happen there. Here, it's a lot easier because this is what we're the development of the beautification of this town.
Yeah, and we're working on getting the word out. We can send an email out to our business listserv. I've never had anybody respond. I've sent something to that listserv. But reminding people that they can sign up for notifications, like this is now scheduled as regular meeting time. So that's something, but that's definitely a role that, I would love for you to tell your friends, fellow business owners, residents, everybody, that's something they can sign up for. So they know when these meetings are happening, they can see the agenda. And if they want to participate, they can participate.
Right, and if we want to, I mean, we can also make it where we all post, the same thing. I don't know if anybody else said to this, but like I posted that at 9 a.m. We're having a meeting now. Here's the Zoom link. Click
And that could be
involved.
scheduled from
And that was,
from our account.
Yeah,
It could
was
be
it-
auto-populated.
but your people follow
Yeah.
you. So if you post, I automatically see it because I'm your friend. The DDA is not going to have that following for a long time. So I think that
Yeah.
and be the influencers of that. And I'm willing to do it, but reach is only so far. So
Yeah,
we're all posting at the same time. It's flooded through our
I think as like an entity.
Let's get our
it'd
work
be
done.
easy.
We have to get this work done.
Yeah.
Or the DDA is gonna fail. We have to get our work done Seriously.
first.
They're gonna help us though.
They'll help us some, but it also slows
Slows
us down.
down, yeah.
We have to get the work done for getting this, again, this plan is so broad. It will still incorporate, if you're wise and you contact people, which you are, you'll hear from them. If there's anything new that people really want to see, we have to get this plan in place. If
So-
we don't, it's gonna put us back years in terms of having
And on-
funds to make things happen.
That note, we do want the community's input for this plan. And so now that we got the signed contract with heirs, we can dig down. I mean, they gave us in the proposal kind of an overview of their
Yeah.
days here, but really hammer out that that schedule and
Will
when
that
to
be open
invite
to the-
people.
The general public also, who we invite?
There will be
and
various
invite?
sessions,
Yeah.
yeah, geared at different aspects of the public, and they're also very eager to walk around and meet business owners at their businesses and have those conversations. And I think it's going to be really crucial that everybody here help get that word out, identify those people. I was hoping to spend more of this meeting doing that piece. Heirs has kind of broken it down into, they call it the workers, the wise, the warriors, and the wealthy. So we can look at that list. I think it's also kind of thinking about longtime locals versus newcomers, thinking about people who are going to be thinking about family orientation versus, young single folks that might want more of a nightlife, and just making sure we're getting all those various pieces of the pie together. So we have to be careful again with public meetings. We can't have ongoing discourse over email, but you can all email me your thoughts. I'm gonna email these questions since we didn't get into a lot of them. If you have specific thoughts that you want to have shared. And again, heirs is going to go through a lot of this when they're here. But you can email that to me and I can compile all those notes along with your Post-it notes and the notes that we took during this so that we can give that to them and they have that as a basis in addition to kind of the 2017 Fraser strategic plan and other plans that are already in the book so that they're working off of those as a starting point.
When will we learn how those 3 days will be planned out?
That's what we just got them the signed contracts. We
Yeah.
had to wait for the board to approve it. So I know they were meeting today to kind of start hammering out some of those details. So
So you're gonna send these questions out on email?
they've been sent out on email. I can resend them out, but
Oh.
yeah.
Am I allowed to share those with the public?
I wouldn't share these one. I mean, there's not a specific reason you can't, but I don't know that these are the most relevant questions to share with the public. These were geared more towards a DDA board discussion. So in terms of wrapping up here, are there any updates before we talk about future agenda items in our next meeting?
So this document is this is the one you were just going through. What's the name of it?
It was just I can resend it if that's helpful. It was just the email that I sent out the end of last week with the questions from heirs to kind of shape the discussion
Perfect.
to prepare for the plan of development process. Yeah. One update, if you have not already, or if you just want to let me know before you leave, DCI is going to give us as many logins as we need.
That's awesome.
So there's so many that I can jump on the computer and fill in, and then Bill Schrum is away on vacation, but when he gets back, he can fill in additionals. If people are changing to a DDA email, I wanted to use that email. So I've got one from Lori and Abby.
I sent mine in like 2 days ago.
Did you? Okay.
Antoinette said that it was updated.
Okay, I'll get that from Antoinette then. Yeah. And if you're fine using your current email, that's fine too. I just didn't want to, I'm not looking to change emails for logins and things like that. So I will plan to use whatever email I have for you moving forward. If I don't hear otherwise, can I say today? Because I'm actually going out of town the end of this week as well. I want to get you guys those logins. All right. Any other updates?
So next meeting? Oh,
That's
sorry.
what I was gonna ask.
And I'll just say Abby is attending the Metro Mobile Tour with DCI. She snagged the last spot that opened up due to a cancellation. So
Thank you, Abby.
So I will talk more with Lori and Parks because we might need to narrow this down as our last meeting before that plan of development. The county assessor was going to try to get some numbers together for that meeting. And so having her and Troy Bernberg talk about our kind of 2024 assessment and what we could expect in that process. The Chamber of Commerce
Commerce and Grand Economic Development. We had invited them for today and they were not available, but are available on the 27th. I think it could be helpful to have their perspective on economic development because they've been working in that space. As well as Grand Enterprise Initiative is Patrick Bauer. He's works with a lot of small businesses doing free small business consulting in Grand County. I have not reached out to the tourism board, but that's another possibility. I think we're going to have some work to kind of finalize that plan of development schedule and stakeholder outreach. I could also give you an update. I believe at our September 4th meeting with the Board of Trustees, we'll be revisiting the business enhancement grants and economic incentive packages. So if this board wanted to provide any input or wants a role in those programs, that's something else we could talk about. And then revisiting the Fraser DDA logo. So this is probably too much for one meeting. So if there's any immediate thoughts on what you think is most crucial going into the plan of development versus revisiting it in October, once we hopefully have a draft plan of development underway, please share. Otherwise, I'll connect with the chair and co-chair to hash out what to focus
So
on.
you think that we'll have more of a plan to go back into what you were saying of what that will look like when they're coming the 9th, 10th, and 11th? Like,
That's what I'm working on. Right
Yeah.
now, the proposal has an overview. So it kind of focuses on DDA board member involvement as this group Monday morning and Wednesday morning.
Okay.
Monday morning would be kind of like a kickoff initial discussion. They'll be talking with you guys. They'll be talking with Board of Trustees, Planning Commission, business owners, residents. And then by Wednesday morning, they're actually giving us a draft that we can request edits from. We are looking to move it through pretty quickly at that point, just because we do have to reach that December deadline. Statute requires that we give it to the Planning Commission. They technically have 30 days to give us written recommendations. We're hoping they will be willing, if they're involved in that process, to review it if we get it to them by September. Sorry, I keep looking at the calendar over
Yeah.
there. If we get it to them by September 20th, that they'll actually review it and give us those recommendations at their September 25th meeting. So then we can then schedule the public hearing and bring it to the Board of Trustees, probably October 16th. And then that gives us meetings in November if we need them, if the Board of Trustees wants major revisions. Smaller revisions, should be fairly easy. So that we can meet that December 10th deadline. So we'll hammer out the exact schedule as, business owners or with the other roles you play in the community. They may set up more individual or smaller meetings with you, but the information I have right now would focus on September 9th in the morning and September 11th in the morning. So we'll probably not maybe do our DDA meeting that Tuesday. But more details to come. So
And I was gonna say
Sooner
for that
better.
meeting,
Yeah.
if we could just stay high, because if we get invited to get into the details and the nitty gritty, we're not gonna make.
for those different, that was the idea, that
Yeah.
they just kind of share what they do and who they are and quick thoughts on economic development since they've been in this space longer than a lot of us maybe. And that they could come back at a future meeting to really dive into a partnership between like the DDA and the Chamber of Commerce.
I really think the plan development schedule, stakeholder outreach is like the most important thing
Yeah.
for the next meeting.
And I think it'd
Okay,
already be
different
great
meeting.
if you guys can email me with your list of stakeholders that you want to see on that list. There may be some overlap since we're not doing it, but just the sooner we can get on people's calendars, I think the better rates of participation we'll have.
I have to get going.
Yeah, same.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
I second.
All approved, all in favor?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. It's exciting stuff.
A great presentation.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
I loved it very much.
I've had a lot of practice.
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah.
And
it's my first time.
obviously,